I will call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, May 19th, Princeton Township Board meeting. We will start with a Pledge of Allegiance. If you please join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm not sure if people are hearing me or whatever.
You're coming through loud and clear.
You're coming through with me too, Bill Whitcomb.
Got you loud and clear.
Okay, Mr. Duden is now here.
Yes.
Okay, we will now open up for open forum. Please identify yourself and maybe try to only join in once, if possible. We will have, hopefully you say your name so we can recognize who is speaking, and we can proceed onward. Is there anybody for open forum? Am I not hearing anybody, or is there nobody wishing to speak?
Mr. Chairman, Thomas Duden here.
Mr. Duden.
I would like to propose to the township about changing the way we meet. I would move the motion to discontinue the township board meetings via teleconference and resume in-person meetings at the township hall with no restrictions, beginning with any meeting starting June 1st.
Is there a second to that motion?
John Wilhelm, I'll second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to resume regular township board meetings at the town hall unless restrictions continue after June.
With no restrictions. With no restrictions.
With no restrictions. Well, we'd have to still offer have the more than 10 people rule, unless that gets listed.
I want that thrown out with no restrictions. I want whoever wants to attend can attend. We're all adults. We can all practice space management, whatever we want to do.
Gene, this is Dan Hiller. As far as I know, that is a CTC guideline. That is not a law. Thomas, can you put your seatbelt on? Your doorbell's banging like that. Did you hear me on that one, Gene?
Yes, I heard you, Dan.
I'm curious on that. I mean, do we have to? It's a guideline. It's not a law. So, unless somebody else corrects me on that.
Actually, the legislature has given the governor the power to. We saw that at the special meeting. We are still obligated to have no more than 10 people in a meeting.
Mr. Chair, if I could interject, this is Jason Hill.
Yes, sir.
The executive order that was signed last week provides that the limitation of 10 in a gathering does not apply to governmental meetings. They are still encouraging remote meetings, but you're not bound by that limit at 10. What I've been telling folks is you can go back to regular meetings. I would, try to stick to, some of the social distancing guidelines and some of those things. But you aren't limited by the 10 any longer, and that's from the executive order that was signed last week. And that, again, it explicitly provided for governmental meetings. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to begin regular meetings in the town hall after June 1st with no restrictions? Is there any further discussion? It's not really time for it. It's open forum. It's supposed to be anybody but town board members, but I'll entertain it. We'll finish this motion. Is there any further discussion? Last call. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote by roll call. Mr. Duden.
Aye, and my seatbelt is on.
Taylor.
Yes.
Local, yes, with that new information. Mr. Whitcomb
Yes.
and Mr. Wilhelm.
Yes.
Motion is carried 5-0 that we will conduct meetings after, it won't be Thursday night, but anything regular month after that will be in the town hall. Is there any further open forum?
Yeah, this is Amy from Long Siding Bar and Grill. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Amy.
Yeah, I have a question, actually, or a suggestion. If we're allowed to open at 50% on the 1st, we were wondering if we could put some more picnic tables out in our parking lot and extend a patio and do service outside.
I would like to refer that to our attorney if we may.
I guess that's fine, but it would be a city ordinance. I mean, right now I can get a special permit from you and have people drinking out in my parking lot for a car show. So what I'm trying to do is maybe put 10 more tables outside and extend our seating, because at 50 people in my bar, we can't make a profit.
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill. I'm not too familiar with if I could get, if you could contact me and give me that information, I could see what the township can do in that regard. I'm not sure what exactly the township's role in that would be. If that is a licensing issue or an issue with the state and whatever they come up with as of June 1st for bars and restaurants. But I'll certainly look into it and see if it's something that the township can help with.
Sure, and I
Under-
can do that too.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, this is Scott Richards. With the ordinance that you adopted with special events, those small special events are done administratively now. So we'll talk to Jason, Doug and Jason, and I can talk about that in terms of, at least from a zoning perspective, I don't see any issues. I don't know if there's a liquor licensing issue, but we'll look into that.
That's all I ask. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Amy, you can contact Mr. Dahl at the town hall to get their phone numbers.
Sure.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else wish to speak in open forum? Anybody else wish to speak for open forum? Am I just not hearing, or is nobody responding?
Hey, Doug, this is John Wilhelm. Can you mute the callers that aren't muted? I'm getting a lot of backfeed here.
Is there anybody else wish to speak for open forum? If not, we will close open forum and move on with the actual township meeting. First item of business.
Gene? Yeah, this is Doug. I'd like to ask all the participants to self-mute, so we can reduce the background noise. There's some I can't identify, so I don't want to be muting people that want to speak. If you're not muted, please mute yourself to reduce the background noise, and unmute when you need to speak. Thank you.
If there is no other open forum, we will proceed to move on with our meeting. First item is to approve meeting minutes of the April 21st regular meeting. Is there any discussion? Any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the April 21st regular meeting as written.
I make a motion to accept the April 21st regular meeting minutes.
Motion has been made by Mr. Wilhelm to accept the April 21st minutes. Is there a second?
Dan Hiller, I'll second that.
Mr. Hiller has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Duden. Mr. Duden? Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Local aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
And Mr. Duden, did you get back? Motion carries by a 4-0 vote with Mr. Duden apparently out of bad spot or not right now. Minutes of the special meeting on May 12th, excuse me. Is there any discussion, additions to the deletions? And I don't see anything, so I will move to accept the May 12th special meeting.
I would second that. Second that,
That was
Bill
who?
Whitcomb. Bill Whitcomb.
Mr. Whitcomb seconds the motion. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll try again. Roll call, Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Locals, aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
We'll move on to the next is May 12th Board of Audit. Any deletions, additions, sections? If not, I entertain a motion to accept.
Mr.
I make the
Duden,
motion
I
to
would
accept
move.
the minutes.
I think two people did. Who wants first?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Duden.
Okay, who made the first motion?
Bill Whitcomb.
Bill.
Okay, Mr. Whitcomb. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we will proceed to vote. Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Hiller.
Aye.
Mr. Stokel, aye. Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion carries by a 5-0 vote. The next item of business is the cash control statement you have in front of you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Mr. Dahl has it very well laid out. Is there any discussion about it? Is there any discussion about the cash control statement.
This is Dan Hiller. I do have one question on that. How does that work now with the county now doing all the septic permits and that? We have Richard Ryman escrow. How long? What do we have to do with that, or what's going on with that? Or is that completely irrelevant to what we're talking about right now?
I can answer that question. We have to hold it until the county releases it for us.
Okay.
So the county
No,
has to approve his septic system before we release.
Okay. That's all I was questioning.
That came from, just in case anybody's questioning it, that came from Todd Geske. And so we will be holding that until the county accepts the septic system. Any other questions about the cash control statement?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I'm on the right topic here. The repairs, we've got to billings for a grader tire repair in there, and I believe that was for a plow truck tire repair.
Okay, that's not.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was on the right. Okay.
I don't see it in this person's either.
Mr. Chairman, this is Doug.
Yes.
Which you're looking at the claims.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
And that any category like that, if it's incorrect, we can change it. You can bring it to my attention afterwards.
Okay.
Any other questions about cash control statement? If not, accept a motion to accept the cash control statement.
This is Dan Hiller.
I'll begin.
Motion.
That was who?
Dan Hiller.
Mr. Hiller made a motion to accept the cash control statement. Second. I'll second the motion. Is there any further discussion? And just so everybody understands, the beginning balance is $736,061. Ending is $562, excuse me. And we collected basically almost nothing from the county this month. We will probably see a pretty good check next month. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we will vote to accept the cash control statement. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Mr. Stokel's aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
And the motion carries by a 5-0 vote. We'll move on to payroll.
Mr. Chairman, this is Doug.
Yes, sir.
There are two payroll reports, and that was just an error on my part. I overlooked the second week for Mr. Flegger. So I had to put it in as a separate payroll because I had already completed the first one.
Okay. Didn't I see something in last month for flagpole and custom installation? Or was that just a proposal?
I thought that was just a proposal.
For a claim?
We had the quote.
Okay. I thought that was on our disbursements list for last month. Certainly not my. I will move to accept the disbursements register or the payroll. Payroll, I guess it would be. Is there a second to the motion?
Bill Whitcomb seconds that.
Mr. Whitcomb seconds it. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Somebody want to ask? Did I hear somebody say something? I heard
No, that was me, Gene. I was just clearing my throat. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. All right, if there's no further discussion, we will vote on the April payroll. Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Hiller.
Aye.
Mr. Stokel's aye. Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion is carried. We will accept the April payroll. Next would be claims for approval.
As Doug had mentioned earlier, I had seen something in here to discuss with him, and I already talked to him about just one minor categorizing something. It was a payback to Steve Flagger for purchasing of fuel, so we've got that taken care of already.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, statements about the claims for approval?
This is Dan Hiller. I guess, like Thomas was saying, why do we have a grader tire repair in there?
Oh, yeah, it should be a snowplow or snowplow truck. We had a flat tire that had to get fixed. Is there any further discussion? Questions? Not, we'd accept a motion to approve the claims for approval.
Thomas Duden, I would move the motion to approve with the one change that was noted.
Motion has been made to accept the claims for approval with the change of that being a plow truck tire rather than a I missed it. Where is it? What's it called?
Grader tire.
Grader tire from Billings. I will second the motion.
Hang on. And then, Doug, you're going to switch those account numbers for the for Steve Flagger.
Yeah, I did that when we talked
Okay.
this afternoon.
All right. So whatever gets finalized is going to look a little different than this. The dollar amounts are correct. It's just the accounting numbers going to change.
Yeah, and that the grader versus plow truck, that's just a note, right? That's not a category.
Right.
Okay.
That's the way. Yeah. So I've changed that too.
Is there any further discussion on the claim for approval? Is there any further discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Mr. Stokel's aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion is carried by a 5-0 vote. We will now move to progress for CTAS, or accounts project. Mr. Dahl, I believe you'd be the best one to explain that.
Yeah, Bill Whitcomb and I met, did an online meeting with the mat trainer, Lucinda Messman. We focused primarily on some road questions, but we also clarified some of the ways that CTAS handles accounts and different coding. So we found it very helpful, and we'll have to continue that by actually creating some new labels in the different categories. It's probably a little obscure, but CTAS operates on fund, account, object code, and program code, and we can, by creating some different object codes and program codes, make the reporting more accurate, more precise than it is in its present form. And that was our goal when we met with Lucinda, to get a direction on that, and we're beginning to work those into the process.
Okay, anything else pertaining to the progress? We don't think we need a motion or anything. It's just an informational progress, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Is there anything else? Any other comments about our moving to a better accounting project?
I guess the only comment I would have is, as we move through this, from this last year's annual meeting, it was pretty clear that people wanted a little bit more clarity and transparency as to, at least where the money was being spent on the road. So that's where I'm primarily going to be focusing, is kind of breaking some of that down more. And there are definitely some CTAS categories that split paved roads versus gravel roads. So that's something that Doug and I are going to be working with here. And then I don't want to break it down too granular. I'd like to kind of, I don't want to have 15 accounts. It'd be nice if we could maybe stick to like maybe 8 or something like that. But, it depends on what the rest of the board is wanting to see also. And we'll hopefully have something more for you next month.
And I believe we have something on the agenda later for a workshop to work on accounts. So
I think that
we will move on, I believe.
I think that item that's on the agenda, Gene, is the same one. It just got duplicated. So unless you wanted to discuss it more later.
Okay, you had up further down. You had set up a workshop to work on CTAS or set up subcommittee.
Yeah.
Basically, has a committee. It's just a matter of everybody's on board with it.
Right.
And we'll continue to hear progress as far as I'm concerned, and that should move us along. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Next item is authorization to set up online payments to vendors through Bremer. And that will, if I may ask, Mr. Dahl, that would still be like it would be done like the day after the regular monthly meetings, right?
Right. What we do now, we pay 3 payments through online. We pay the federal tax withholding, state withholding, and PIRA by online payment. With Bremer, we would be able to add people to the account that to the process that Bremer would then be sending a check. So it's $6 for 10 payments like that, $6 per month, which is actually a little bit less than we spend now. But it would reduce the number of checks, and that's the main thing. The question is, do you want to have checks? Do do you think that's necessary? Or, and of course, now if we're coming to the point where we're back to in-person meetings, possibly less urgent. This was something Matt was recommending that we do when we were doing these sorts of teleconference meetings. It would facilitate making payments without requiring getting together to do the signatures. But even without that condition prevailing, it's still, I think it's a good direction to move in and pay as many as we can that way rather than going through checks. But that's just a matter of if the board is confident that that's, that the claims process is covering that and they don't have to see a check. But if they say, no, we want to see a check, we want that to continue, then that would be their purpose.
So we would wish to have a motion to authorize online payments to vendors through Bremer. Is that correct?
That's what it would require, yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to that effect? I'll make that a motion. This is Stokel. We'll make that a motion that we authorize set up online payments to vendors through Bremer whenever possible. Is there a second?
One question here. Are we going to give this the choice of the recipient if they want a check or if they want a direct deposit? Or do we just automatically assume they're getting a direct deposit?
Would want the choice, yes. But Mr. Dahl, is that what the thinking would be?
Yeah. Yes, I would want to clear this with any vendor we wanted to set it up with.
And Matt's okay with this?
Yeah, they're recommending it as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would second that motion. Bill Whitcomb seconded that motion.
Mr. Whitcomb seconds the motion. The motion has been made and seconded to authorize set up online payments to vendors through Bremer for any of that choose. Is there any further discussion?
This is Dan Hiller. My wife works for Bremer Bank. She will not be making any extra money or anything for this, so I just want to make it clear that my wife does work at Bremer Bank. I don't know if that's pertinent or not.
I will ask you last on the voting, and let's make or break a tie. So nobody ever has a question about it. Is that all right, Mr. Whalen?
I mean, if you guys want me to abstain, I mean, I'll abstain from it. That's fine. I mean, I want to make it very clear that my wife works at Bremer Bank.
So let me go out of order.
This is John Wilhelm. Is this just for the vendors or is this for payroll as well?
Anybody that wishes to set it up, I would think. The fewer checks we have to send out, the easier it is.
Yeah, well, I was just going to make the comment. I switched to online banking and online withdrawals through my loans with my business, and I save about 5 check booklets a year. And it's so easy for me to do my bookkeeping now through online and have it gone through my accountant. It just made life so much easier for me. So that was just my thought and my point there. I'm all for it.
Mr. Chairman, this is Doug.
Yes, sir.
Right now I'm just contemplating vendors, payroll, direct deposit payroll would be a different matter on that. This would just be payments to vendors.
Okay, is there any further discussion, I guess? Is there further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Duden, the motion is to authorize set up online payments to vendors through Bremer.
With the option of the check.
Yes.
Aye.
Local is aye. Whitcomb,
Aye for Bill. You're cutting out there.
okay. Mr. Willon
Aye.
and Mr. Hiller, if you don't wish to vote, we still have a 4-0, so,
No, that's fine. I'll abstain.
okay. Mr. Hiller abstains. Very good. Next item of business is Stephanie Reynolds with Mille Lacs County Solid Waste Coordinator.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As most of you know, the county has implemented recycling changes, which includes the hours of operation. Princeton Township agreed to host the recycling trailer on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Over the past 5 months, we have noted citizens' complaints that the trailer is filling up quickly, and I've visited the site on Fridays and have noticed that the trailer is almost full. We're seeing an average of 2,020 pounds per load coming out of Princeton, and comparing to our other sites, we see about 1,600 pounds. So citizens are packing in recycling in those trailers, which is good on an operation standpoint, but on a citizen standpoint, it's not fun to try to pack in that recycling in those trailers. So I'm here today to talk about increasing the hours of operation at Princeton site to allow for 2 loads per week, so we can have a 50 cubic yard capacity instead of the 25 that we're currently doing. My suggested hours of operation would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We could empty the trailer on Friday, and then we would take the trailer away on Monday. Just like to get the board's feedback on those hours, and any other additional comments is appreciated.
Absolutely. Thomas Duden here. I've gone there on a Sunday. You open the doors, material literally falls out. I mean, it is packed in there. Concur with doing a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday versus a Tuesday, Thursday, just oddball days throughout the week. I like your recommendation. We'll just keep it basically 5 days on end. I like that idea.
This is Stokel. I agree. I think it's a great idea to have as much as possible, and so far it's worked out really well that people have been working very hard to keep the area around the dumpsters clean, even though sometimes it's so full that it's hard to pack something else in.
This is
One
Bill.
question. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, so is this the location further south in the county that we have for drop site?
We have one location in Princeton, and then the Malacca site, Onamia, and Isle.
Where is the one in south?
So just Princeton, and then Malacca, Onamia,
Princeton
and Isle.
Township, where ours is at? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but most of Princeton, they have curbside recycling through a solid waste management. So it's mostly the rural citizens that are dropping off.
Okay.
Have you seen, I know the big thing when we started going to leaving the trailer there overnight, I know that was a big concern in the past, was a lot of garbage just being thrown. Are you seeing any of that?
Yeah, that was a concern of mine too. I haven't seen bags full of garbage. It seems like maybe they're emptying out their car and they throw wrappers in there. We've had a fire extinguisher and a blender out of the Princeton site, but nothing too significant, which is great.
So, Stephanie, do you wish for us to have a motion, or do we just nod our heads in approval?
If we could get a motion, and then I'll create an addendum to the agreement, and then I'll get that to you to sign.
Very good. I will make a motion that we have dumpster service from Wednesday through Sunday, with the dumpster emptying on Friday and Sunday. there a second to that motion?
I would say,
I missed that.
John
Thomas
Wilhelm,
Student
I'll
seconds that
second that
motion.
motion.
Okay, Mr. Wilhelm, I didn't quite hear what you said.
I said I'd second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I got some other feedback or something. Mr. Dutton, did you have something else?
just keep up the good work. I like what it's doing. I think it's a real benefit to our community.
Very good. Any other discussion? Motion has been made and seconded to have Wednesday through Sunday service with emptying on Friday and Sunday. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Vocals aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
The motion carries by a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much, Stephanie. We'll now go to zoning administrator's report.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Richard.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Scott Richards. The first item that we have is the event venue ordinance summary language resolution. Back on April 21st, you had second reading and adopted the ordinance for event venues and agritourism. At that time, we thought that we would publish in whole. The ordinance does say that, but it does allow for the town board to do a summary resolution. Looking at the costs for this, it was about $400 to publish it, as opposed to $50 to publish a summary. So all you need to do tonight is, since you've already adopted the ordinance, just pass the resolution in your packet, and we'll publish the just the summary ordinance. So all I need is a motion and a second to adopt the resolution.
Is there a motion to accept the summary resolution for event venue?
I'm a student. I would approve that motion. I would move the motion to
And,
adopt the resolution.
One motion is made to adopt the resolution, or summary resolution.
I would
I will
second
second
that.
motion.
Bill Whitcomb.
Mr. Whitcomb. Mr. Whitcomb?
Second that.
Mr. Whitcomb seconds the motion. Motion has been made and seconded to adopt a summary resolution for the event venue ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we will vote. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Mr. Sokol's aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion is carried by a 5-0 vote. We're having an event venue summary and resolution passed. Next item is the solar energy ordinance for summary language resolution. Basically same thing.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is the same exact thing. There's a resolution in your packet. This one is going to save us about $600, so it's well worth it to publish it for about $50 rather than $650. So again, same routine, just a motion and second to approve the resolution.
This is Dan Hiller. I'd move the motion.
Motion has been made to accept the solar energy ordinance summary language resolution. Second.
So I just had a question. So what's the difference other than, saving this $500 on this between posting the complete one versus the summary? I mean, everything's basically the same, right? I mean,
Basically the same, yes. There's just a short summary of the ordinance rather than publishing a word for word the entire ordinance.
If anybody wishes to see the entire ordinance, they can contact Town Hall or Mr. Richards and get a full copy, but it's multiple pages.
Okay, I got you. I'd second that.
That was Mr. Whitcomb?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Whitcomb seconds the motion. Motion has been made and seconded to have a solar energy ordinance summary resolution. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Did I hear an aye?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Stoffels, aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion is carried by a 5-0 vote. Next item of business is Sterling Farm request for the CUP, I believe, is what it ends up being, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a few quick notes on this. This was a conditional use permit based upon an application made by Terry Persing for an event venue at 8605 70th Street. Obviously, that we just adopted the summary resolution, and it'll be published. We couldn't put this in effect until it is published, so just wanted to make that note. What they're asking for is a gathering place for groups, for graduations, weddings, other social events. They're looking at events less than 200 people. Property is about 46 acres, located on 70th Street and 85th Avenue. Zoned agriculture conservation, and again, of course, event venues are a recently added use in that district. This really, with the ordinance and now with the conditional use permit process, puts in place that ability for these applicants to go through, look at meet conditions, and proceed ahead with these types of agritourism and event venues. There's about 100-year-old barn on the property. Will be used, and only the first level of the barn at this time will be used. If the applicant chooses to occupy more buildings or occupy the second level at a later date, the barn would need to comply with additional building fire code requirements. We've had conversations with Todd Geske, the building official, to make sure that we address those issues, and the Persings continue to address those issues also. Permanent restrooms, that is an issue and something discussed by the Planning Commission. A determination yet needs to be made if a permanent restrooms, disability accessible, can be utilized, or portable facilities can be used. They cannot operate or proceed ahead with any events until that's been resolved and they meet the restroom requirements of the Uniform Building Code. And I have a condition related to that. Access will be off of 70th Street. There will be no parking allowed on any of the two county roads as far as allowing any of the participants in an event to park there. There is adequate parking that they've shown on the site plans. The emergency medical plan, they have addressed a number of items, but they will have to provide a full emergency evacuation plan that will be given to each of the people that are looking at hosting an event or doing an event, and then share that with the city. Talk about restrooms, signage. They'll have to provide a signage plan. The trash receptacles will be screened or placed within an existing building. We've gone through the criteria with the Persings. Planning Commission went through those items also. No major issues were detected. Again, the big issue for the Persings is the restroom facilities, and what the building official, once he reviews the site and once architectural plans are drawn up, the determination will be made. So as you can see, there is a list of 18 conditions. A resolution has been prepared for your action tonight if you decide to proceed with this. And again, I'd like to point out number 10 reads, the applicant shall submit a plan for restroom facilities that are compliant with the Uniform Building Code. Property shall not be used as an event venue until code compliant restroom facilities are installed. Whether that's a trailer restroom facility or actual construction of a permanent facilities will have to be determined. So any questions? I went through that fairly quickly, but you have the background material on the right.
I have one. You did mention the upstairs in the barn. That would be off limits unless they were to upgrade considerably. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Gene. There's a number of building code issues that would have to be addressed. Right now, there's only ladders that go up into that haymow, and there would have to be proper access and exiting. Very likely the building would have to be sprinkled. So yeah, there's quite a hill to quite a grade to go up to get to that point. But the applicants, you do want to at least start with the lower level. They will accommodate probably less than 100 people. And they're also occupied some of the outdoor facilities. They could bring in tents and so forth in order to accommodate more than just 100 people also.
Scott, this is Dan Hiller. I just have a question on this. Why is this being brought as a CUP and not a IUP? Kind of got a little knowledge on them, not a lot. So if you won't mind just explaining to me a little bit, doesn't the conditional use permit stay with that land forever? And the IUP would terminate after the person's sold the property?
Yeah, Dan, that is correct. The Planning Commission had a lot of discussion about, in fact, the first drafts reflected as IUP, interim use permit. But it was felt that if an applicant for any event venue is going to put in substantial dollars, that if you have a change of ownership and the town board doesn't approve of that, there is a value issue that was put into that property. So yeah, the Planning Commission, again, after a lot of discussion, felt that a conditional use permit was more appropriate.
Even though most counties are going away from CUPs. I mean, our auction center's down in Sherburne County, and I got a lot more money into that auction building than they got there, and I had to give up my CUP and go to an IUP. So, I'm not against it. I'm just questioning. It seems like that's kind of becoming the trend, is to do away with the CUPs and going to IUPs. But
Dan, I guess I've seen it both ways. That municipalities or townships are each handling it in either way. And there's a lot of discussion as part of that. And the town board may have discussed that too. I don't recall the exact conversation at the time that we approved the ordinance. So,
sure. No, I just had a question on that. So.
Yeah, it's a good point. Very good.
A point that could be made is that the township board still has the ability to rescind a CUP if there is a violation or serious questions about the management of a CUP.
IUPs are the same way. You can do spot checks on IUPs and come in and make sure that they're in compliance with everything. So
typically, when we give a CUP, it's for the 1 year, and then we have to review. Is this what you're recommending, Scott?
Typically, you do. I think I could certainly add a condition so that it's clear within the resolution that if that's something you wish to do.
Yeah, we've usually in the past when we give a CUP, we usually review it after 1 year.
I would agree, Mr. Chair. I think that's a good idea.
That was who?
I'm sorry, that was Scott Richards.
Okay. Is there a motion to grant the CUP with all the provisions that Mr. Richards has laid out for us and adding the 1 year review?
This is Dan Hiller. I'd make that motion.
Motion has been made to grant the CUP for Sterling Farms with the restrictions placed on and with 1 year review. Is there a second?
I would second that. Bill Whitcomb.
Mr. Whitcomb seconds it. Is there any further discussion?
Gene, this is Dan Hiller. I do have one question. I don't know how long this process is going to take. I mean, he's still got to get his bathrooms and everything figured out. Yet he's still advertising for bookings. I mean, does the township want to address that, tell him that he can't physically be trying or actively be trying to book venues until everything's in place? Or I guess that was one concern that was brought up to me, and you guys can decide.
Gene, can I talk? This is Dave Persing.
Yes.
I would like to know where I'm advertising, because we have no website, we have no Facebook page, we have complied with everything the former township attorney had requested. So if you have proof of me advertising somewhere, could you please provide that to me?
Dave, I just got a call from a gal, no different than when you were on the board. You got calls from residents, and I had somebody say they saw it on Facebook. You know,
Yes.
as well as I do, I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not here to pick a fight with you. I'm just asking a question. If
No,
the township wants you to actively be trying to book venues,
Yeah,
if you
but
don't
it's
have your permit.
yeah.
And if
There's
you're
a
not,
lot
then
of
you're not.
unsubstantiated things. That's all I'm trying to make sure is that if you're gonna throw that claim out, we should have a basis for it.
Okay, I would suggest that they probably have to wait to do any advertising until you have met building codes and so on. Because if you were to book some activity and had to cancel because you can't get on the certificate of occupancy, it could be pretty awkward for a bride to have, or a wedding couple to have to try to find a different venue a week before their wedding.
Not necessarily in the year 2020.
Well, we're going to assume that late in the summer we're probably going to be somewhat back to normal, and I would be a little hesitant to be booking something that you may not be able to provide a venue for.
Mr. Chair, may I
Motion
speak?
has been made and seconded, just for review, to grant the CUP for Sterling Farms with all conditions plus the condition of an annual review.
This is Bill Whitcomb. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that we've got a few local neighbors expressing their support for this. One would be Kristen Bailey, who's right next door. She says that she would like to recommend that you vote to approve Dave and Terry Persing's request to use their barn as entertainment venue. As one of their nearest neighbors, I've talked with Dave and Terry about their plans, and I'm comfortable with their commitment to run a business the township would be proud to have, and to mitigate any of their neighbors' concerns. Thank you for your time, Kristen Bailey. And then there's another gentleman to the west, or to the east, that texted everybody, I believe, in support. I just wanted to make that sure that showed up on the record.
Is there any further discussion on pushing to grant the CUP for the Sterling 70 farm with the conditions plus the condition of a 1-year review? Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Mr. Stokel's aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion is carried by a 5-0 vote. We will proceed with the CUP for Sterling 70 Farms with all the restrictions. Next item is the Voight Interim-Use permit. This is a request for putting a second home on a property because of a parent who needs to be close to a family.
Mr. Chair, this got.
Mr. Richards, could you fill us in?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a application made by Bo Munson representing the Voights for an interim use permit. It's 5795 30th Street. Second dwelling will allow for Jamie's mother to live on the property close to the family. Property is zoned rural residential district. Second single family dwelling is allowed through an interim use permit. And the second dwelling is intended as on a temporary basis. Really not many issues with this. The Planning Commission recommended favorably at their May 4th meeting to offer this interim use. The second dwelling meets all the requirements of a dwelling within the district. And the setbacks will be met with the temporary structure. And we have put, if you look at the conditions, we have put a 10-year limitation on it as far as they can always ask for an extension. If Jamie's mother decides to stay longer, they can always ask for that after 10 years. Also, the Planning Commission wanted to assure that this dwelling be used by a family member and not for short and long-term rentals, and that's reflected in the resolution in front of you. I see Jamie is online too, and Bo is also, I believe, participating. So if you have any questions of the applicants, they're on all sessions of the board at this point.
Scott, this is Dan Hiller. I have a couple questions on that. With them moving this house in there, why are we giving them an EU or IUP, not a CUP, if we just gave the Piercings one? I mean, they're going to go through the expense of moving in a prefab home. I'm assuming they're either going to be putting in a second septic system or making their current septic larger. I mean, they're going to be putting an awful lot of money into this. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have a 10-year shelf life on it.
Mr. Hillary, this is Scott Richards again. Again, it's just the way the ordinance is written. The ordinance, again, indicates that it has to be an IUP. And really the intent of this is it's for exactly what Jamie and Corey are going to do, and then just allow for a second dwelling during the current time, and then later on have it removed. So it's kind of a perfect example of an interim use, and that's the way the ordinance is set up.
Did they ever get clarification on how they're going to identify each house through mailbox numbers, or is it going to be listed as House A, House B, or anything like that? I was sat in on the Planning Commission meeting, and there was one point that was brought up there, how they were going to identify each house. Right.
I haven't checked with the post office. Maybe Jamie or Bo have done it. It's something that we can resolve before the house goes in, but we'll definitely have to resolve that.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Richards or Jamie? If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to accept. Granting an IUP for the Voights having a second home structure on their property. Is there a motion?
One quick clarification here, Gene. And this might be for Scott. Does this have to meet the 2.5 acre requirement? I'm just trying to look at this from a big picture.
Yes, it does. I'm looking at the report here. I can't recall how large that property is. It's pretty significant, but it does meet the requirements for filling out the two dwellings, because there is a specific provision in the ordinance that addresses that.
See, the home is 56 by 28, roughly.
Yeah, this is coverage. It's 18.5 acres is the property.
Okay.
Yeah. So you would have to have 2.5 acres, or at least 5 acres to have a second dwelling, and have more than that. So we're fine.
Any further discussion? Any further questions from Jamie or Mr. Richards? If not, I'd entertain a motion to grant an IUP to the Voights. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move the motion to allow it. Thomas Duden.
Mr. Duden made the motion to grant an IUP to the Voight. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to the motion? I will assume Mr. Stokel will second the motion. Is there any further discussion on a motion to grant an IUP to the Voight for a second home on 18 acres with the stipulation that it will be only for some member of a family, as I understand?
I do have a question. So one of the other issues we're dealing with on other properties is buildable. I mean, I know we're not building, it's a 10-year permit. How much of the 18 acres is actually high ground and would be considered buildable? And does that matter?
I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, I believe that is all fairly high ground right in there, isn't it? It's across from Sterling Lake, but it's been a while since I've taken a look at it. But if you look at the site plans, there's a significant amount of trees. I guess maybe there is some wetland there, but yeah, maybe you want to fill us in on that.
So I don't know exactly the acreage. I know behind our house, going on to 95 is wetland, but we haven't had any kind of measurement or anything. I know the people before us had a ranch style to where they had horses and stuff out here, so I'm not quite sure how they parceled everything off in that sense.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't see the site plan until I was on the wrong document here. I see where it's going now. Thank you.
No problem.
Point of where I'm coming from, my brother actually just built a house on my home farm. My mother's getting up there in age. They would not let them build out there. They would let them build a temporary house. However, same thing. He's the only one that can live in it and everything else. A small rural township, I emphasize rural township, they wanted a permanent house built on the property because they didn't want this coming up in their township with all these properties being littered with trailer houses and prefabs and just cheap 10-year buildings that end up being long-term fixtures. So that, I mean, I just want to throw that clarification out there. If we're going to go down this road, might be something to think about.
Remember, we're putting a 10-year limitation on this.
But I mean,
This
going
is Dan.
forward.
This is Dan Hiller. I also have a concern on that is, I don't know what their finances are or anything, but if that ends up getting sent back to the bank, then, if we have another real estate crunch, then all of a sudden is the township going to be fighting with the bank saying, no, that house can't be there? That's, my concern on that. And if they've got enough land, I don't know, maybe I'll maybe look at split.
Mr. Richards, can you come up with a plan to safeguard the township?
One thing I would like to ask, Mr. Chair, this is Scott Richards. Well, could you explain the construction of this house? It is a prefab, essentially, but it's not what you refer to as a trailer house. It's more of a substantial structure, and it is a fairly good size structure also. It will have to be put on a permanent foundation.
Yes, it has to meet all local codes by the building official. It's standard construction, 2x6 sidewalls, permanent siding, lifetime architectural shingles. So it's not a tin can. It's not a mobile type home. I guess the hard thing is like, you know, with the zoning ordinance that was put forth, Scott, and you correct me, I guess there can't really be prejudice against residential dwelling in this case either.
Mr. Chair, this is Scott Richards. Again, it does meet all the minimum standards for a typical home that is built in the township. A few years ago, it's my understanding that they did add provisions so that trailer houses were not permitted. So again, this, as far as the size of the rooms, size of the entire structure, the width and the length, all meet standard dwelling requirements.
Scott, this is Dan Hiller's. So they're going to move in the prefab home, and I've seen them. There's nice ones out there, so I'm not knocking that. But they're going to go through all the expense of putting this on a full foundation, septic and well, and possibly in 10 years not being able to keep it there. Is there 18 and some odd acre land splittable where they can split off a lot and just create a second lot, or is it an unsplittable lot?
Yeah, Mr. Hiller, Scott Richards, it's a flag lot, meaning that there's a certain width to the driveway that comes off of the access road, so they wouldn't have the frontage for a second lot unless they put in a township cul-de-sac or whatever down the road. So. No, it wouldn't. And with the configuration of where the house is going in relationship to the principal dwelling, you probably wouldn't want it as a second parcel anyway.
Okay.
This is Bo Munsell from Excelsior Homes. In regard to the well, we would be sharing the well, tying into the existing well. In regards to the septic system, Mille Lacs County allows a holding tank in this case. So I've been in contact with Mille Lacs County. I've gotten their blessing as far as all the setbacks. Once hopefully this would be passed, I would have to provide a design from a licensed installer and a site plan, just like I would have to give to the township for approval. And in regards to add a little bit as far as finances, so we're working with the lender on this. There's not going to be any interest in the land. It's a chattel type loan, so there's no connection at all with the land and the house, personal property basically. So if there was any problems in the future, the bank is going to have the interest in the house, and that would be something that would be removed.
Okay.
Without a problem.
So they're planning on putting in just a holding tank for it? They're not planning on putting in an actual septic?
Correct. It would be a holding tank.
Aren't we already dealing with one of those issues in our townships? Isn't that what the escrow is for a holding tank? Are we already having issues with that?
I think that's a permanent home. We have some other holding tanks in the township where people have like pet grooming and so on, where they have to have their holding tank pumped because they can't let dog hair go into their septic systems and so on.
Yeah, and we will have to have a pumping contract as part of the permit with the county. So that's going to be very closely monitored by the county.
Is there any further discussion? Any other questions? Is there any further discussions? Any further questions? If not, we'll vote. Mr. Duden? Motion is, the motion is to grant an IUP to the Voights for a second manufactured home. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Mr. Stokel's aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion carries by a 5-0 vote. We will grant the IUP to the Voights. And we'll move on to the next item is the TMK property sketch plan. The cover letter, I think, has a mistake. It says subdivision consists of 5 lots. 4 will directly access 135 and 2 others on 67th Street. It looks like it's more like 3 lots and 2 lots. The 5 is correct, but...
Hello, this is Jesse John Dahl. Gene Skokel, Mr. Chairman, could I ask you to recuse yourself from this, please?
For what reason?
You're a neighbor to the property.
That's not sufficient reason.
You're adjacent to the landowners that were doing this on their property, and I don't think you have his interest, my interest, the township's interest as part. I think it's more of yours. Other board members, tell me if I'm incorrect on that, please.
The only reason I would have to excuse myself would be if it was financial or familial or something. It has nothing to do with proximity.
Your decision on what you make makes it financial, so you're right. It is financial. Thank you. You need to recuse yourself of this meeting, Gene.
No, I don't. I absolutely do not.
Is the attorney present?
Yes, this is Jason Hill.
Jason, Jesse John Dahl. James Stokel and Kathy Stokel have, I'm not sure if it's 40 acres adjacent to this property. It is a dollars issue for him at this point, and I need him to be recused of this, as what we're doing with TMK properties.
I guess I don't know what the connection is other than being a neighbor. What is the financial connection?
100 acres versus development. If it's going to be a dollar value to him or not a dollar value to him. If the development went next door to somebody else's acreage, is that going to make it more valuable to one or the other? In which way that somebody votes on now. I see him standing too hardly and strongly as a dollar figure on it as to a professional vote on
it. Scott, can you clarify me? Is there a choice here between properties? I guess I'm not sure. I thought this was just a sketch plan.
Mr. Chair, this is Scott Richards. In answering you, Jason, it's my understanding the Sokos have no financial interest in this property. They're just neighbors. I guess in my reading of the issues with their need to recuse themselves, they really have no issue. They're just neighbors. So I don't see a reason why they would have to. Gene would have to refrain from this. And remember, it's just a sketch plan. You can take a vote on it if you want. In fact, the ordinance doesn't even require the town board to look at a sketch plan. It's really a planning commission item. But it is something before the preliminary plat that's helpful for the developers to have the input of the town board. So that's why we're taking it.
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill. This is Jason Hill again. I agree. I don't see any issue for recusing.
This is Dan Hiller. Todd, could you explain the difference, what a cul-de-sac and a hammerhead is for me, since that was part of the recommendations?
I think it's basically semantics. A cul-de-sac is a round bubble and a hammerhead is a T-type turnaround.
That's kind of what I was thinking, so I just getting verification on that.
Mr. Chair, this is Scott Richards. Would you like me to give just a few notes on this before you have further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, and that is a good correction in that the sketch plan does show 3 lots that would access south of 70th Street and then 2 lots off of 67. So that was in the report. I do clarify it later in the report, though. This property is zoned river conservation, and it's in the Wild and Scenic River District. We see no issues with lots 3, 4, and 5 that they'll access off the county road. There is an existing access off of 67th for one single-family home. We're asking for a second single-family home. Todd McLaughlin and I had a discussion with Jesse and their engineer last week, and you'll note in the report that it does indicate that a cul-de-sac, and that's what they've shown on their sketch plan, is not allowed in the River Conservation District. But I think we talked about it, and as long as they met the front yard lot requirements, width requirements of 30 feet, and ended that at Hammerhead, so that the township law, which already goes down 67, can turn around. We don't see a major issue with this. Todd has indicated in his report that we would want the section within the property, that 3 feet, to be brought up to township roadway standards. So eventually, if for some reason that property to the west is going to be developed down the road, at least that section will be ready for pavement or just for a township compliant roadway. So again, Planning Commission had a lot of discussion about this, mainly related to the cul-de-sac versus the hammerhead. And I think what we're looking for you as a township board tonight, just to say, are you comfortable with allowing a hammerhead at the end of that and allowing for 2 lots within that area? It meets all the other
Mr. Richards, excuse me, there is currently roughly 450 feet of road that actually goes in almost, I believe it actually goes past the house on that property. If we were to have them put a hammerhead about at where the tip of the cul-de-sac would be, and where on your sketch plan, or a little bit further in, say even with the mound system, all I would ask before we approve this would be that wherever you're putting the hammerhead, and I would suggest it be before the house, that you would ask us to vacate the last 75 feet or whatever of the township road at the point of the hammerhead, so we would not have township beyond the hammerhead.
Yes, as part of again, if the applicants decide to move forward with this, we can certainly look at that as part of the preliminary plat.
I think one other thing too, this is Bill Whitcomb, that was mentioned, since at this point cul-de-sacs are not allowed in this district, we talked about at least having the plat set up so that if in 20 years they decided to allow cul-de-sacs, that they would set up the plat so that maybe an offset bulb to the south would be platted, so that we wouldn't have to purchase right away in the future from property owners. Am I still there?
Yes, I heard you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have a comment? I say once again, my comment is that I would not want to see a township road legally extend beyond the hammerhead, and I wouldn't think that they would want to put the hammerhead right almost at the porch of the existing house.
I would agree with you, Gene.
That existing house, correct? That's a detached garage. The problem that we have is, I agree with what Bill said. I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I haven't been out and measured, and I don't know if Craig, I think, is on the phone. If he has or not, where that cul-de-sac, what Bill was talking about, to put in for a future, that's fine with us. However, where that hammerhead is going to lie, if we can keep it to the west of the mound that's already there, would be better, because the closer you go to the further you go to the east, the more you're going to be in between the garage and the septic, and I'm not exactly sure that's going to fall into play right there.
Right. And then I would just request that you grant it or get the township to abandon whatever east of the hammerhead. And I would like to see that in a slightly revised plan. But as it stands right now, you have plenty of road frontage because the road extends, like I say, actually more or less to their front door.
I would also recommend not just your standard hammerhead, but they've got an alternate hammerhead that's acceptable, which everything falls to one side of the road instead of a T. That way, it stays out of the septic system. Also, it's essentially what we're looking at potentially doing on 33rd here on this pavement project.
Mr. Chair, Scott Richards. Yeah, all that they need to provide as far as right-of-way is 330 feet into that property to the east to meet the zoning requirements. So that probably fits with what you're saying, Mr. Chair, in terms of there could be some area vacated. Again, we're at a very, very preliminary stage with this. So as part of the preliminary plat, we can work out those details with Jesse and with Greg Winsby.
Yeah, that's all I would ask is that we not have road beyond the hammerhead.
Correct. Anything to the east of the hammerhead should be the driveway for that residence that's there right now.
Right. It should be vacated by the township. Right. Mr. Richards, do you wish to have a motion accepting a plan with some revisions, or?
Yeah, I think that would give a clear direction to staff as well as to developers. If you wanted to do a motion, essentially that says, just say you accept the sketch plan as drawn with looking at the hammerhead versus the cul-de-sac and possible a reduction in the amount of township right away in that area. Details to be addressed.
You would like that to be a motion? Is there a motion to that effect?
I'd make a motion to that effect that we accept the sketch plan with a proposal with a acceptable hammerhead turnaround to the south and vacating any portion of the township road to the east of that hammerhead.
I second that motion. This is Stokel. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we would proceed to vote on the motion to approve the sketch plan with that revision. Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Hiller.
Aye.
Stokel's aye. Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is Road Supervisor, Mr. Whitcomb. Would you give us a quick update? Hopefully quick.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. Sorry. Okay. I sent out an email to everybody just not too long before the meeting started. I met with our grading contractor. We went through and looked at which roads. We had some proposed roads earlier on, and we went through that whole list. And you'll see in the information that I sent out with the spreadsheet that has big 2020 in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see a lot of red text kind of halfway down the document. Those are the roads that we added. We eliminated some other ones that we had proposed because they were fairly recently graveled and they're in pretty good shape. So with our graveling, the proposed budget was $60,000. We're anticipating about $32,000 for gravel, and after meeting with
the contract, we're down to 26,000. So that's where we're at on those. And you can, if you want to take a look at that spreadsheet a little bit later, you're welcome to. And if you have any questions, please get back to me. What I'd like to do with some of that additional funds that we're not spending on gravel is utilizing some little bit more dust control in the area. I think what I sent out there in the message, it talks about the benefits of dust controls, reducing dust levels, improving safety and driver experience, improved air and water quality by reducing particulate matter, improved quality of life by nearby residents, extended intervals between gravel placement, and reducing maintenance costs and reducing public complaints. So the two I wanted to focus on is extending the intervals between gravel replacement needs. We recently, 2 weeks ago, we put about 800 yards on 17th Street, which was just done 3 years ago. And due to, the fines being lost in these gravel roads, we're having to put another basically $9,000 of gravel on a road that we just did 3 years ago. And chloride can save us some money because we're not having to maintain the roads as much, we're not having to blade them as much, and we're not having to replace gravel as much because it's keeping those fines in the road. So I'm proposing that we start looking at doing some dust control on some of those roads, and I'd like to spend some of the money that we're saving on the gravel on that dust control. I'm currently doing some traffic counts on a couple roads that I'm kind of got my eye on to do that. Roads that are needing more grading than others. So there's that. And then when it comes to 33rd and 82nd, the cul-de-sac easement cost, I spoke with Jason Hill a little bit about this and Todd. It sounds as though the school is, the issue that they had with the easement, having to pay for the full cul-de-sac at the east end of 33rd, and also giving up the easement on top of paying for the pavement. They were just kind of having some issues with that, and we're thinking that we might have been able to maybe spend some of the township money on that, but I don't know that with discussions with Jason and Todd, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, spending township money on a portion of the road that does not belong to the township might be kind of a hard sell, since the easement that would need to be requested is actually in the city's, it's on the city side of the road. So I think the conclusion is that we're going to do a very shortened alternate to a hammerhead. So we're just going to end the road. Basically, the road goes right up to the bluff, and we're going to do a turnaround that stays within our right-of-way. So it's only going to be about a 33-foot back in, so that vehicles can at least turn around at the end of the road. So that's kind of where we're at that on that. And then we got the chips.
Have you checked the? Oh, sorry. Have you checked with the snowplow drivers to see if that is going to work for them?
I'll do that. The thing of it is, I have it right across from Dan Whitcomb's driveway, and I'm hoping what we can do is beef up that section of the driveway apron out to 33 feet, so that's going to give us a little more room for them to maneuver. But I'll give Brian a call and see if he thinks that's going to be something that they can work with. And then the last item on the list there is the chip seal crack filling plans. I believe you guys, I sent you the proposal. Let's see here. It's the Princeton Township proposal. And that correlates with that spreadsheet I also sent out. So we've got the chip sealing we discussed last month, or at our last meeting, at $32,000. We had budgeted $49,000. The balance of that was going to go into crack sealing. So that's what we're looking at for crack sealing. We've got some patching that we're going to do. And if you scroll down on that proposal that was sent out, you'll see the proposal, and there's two maps. One shows where the skin patching is going to take place, and then the bottom one with all the orange circles. Those are the areas that we're going to have the crack filling. So that everything that's highlighted or circled in red is crack filling, minus, you'll see right there in section 20, what the Brickton north end of Baptist Church Road. I think we're going to have to not include that because that's going over what we had discussed last month. It's going to put us over the amount that everybody agreed to. So what that limits us to is the portion in section 5, section 17, the two that have the kind of the tan and orange dot next to them, Balsam Ridge in section 21, and then everything in section 27, which is the road that goes into Moonshine and all the Den High Estate areas. So that's where all the crack filling will happen. The chip sealing is only on the areas that have the orange dots in them. So basically the Den High Estates, everything in section 27, 21, and the little portion behind the old Pioneer Motel. So that's basically everything with that. I'm working with the city on getting the post sweep. You'll see in that contract they have $5,250 for the sweeping. I'm working with the city on disposing of the sweeping materials that are picked up. It's going to probably be about 60 tons. And we're going to try to work out something, like say with the city, that we may get a reduced cost on some of the, I guess, some of the chip sealing material that they have. And something that Jason and I had talked about, working with the city on this. It's just kind of an informal agreement with them on how we're going to handle this. That's all I had.
Okay, just a quick question. Update on progress on 33rd and 82nd. Start date.
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it's Todd. I asked Knife River today. I did not get a response, but I know that on other townships with Knife River, they're looking at early to mid-June for start date, so that's what I anticipate here.
Okay. And have we sent the letter out informing the residents of that area that they may be running into some traffic or some access issues?
Yes, I did. I sent that out last week.
Out.
Yeah.
Okay, I have nothing else for road reports. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, Thomas Duden here. I have started my own road tour myself, if you will. I don't know what our strategy was this year, so I have started driving around the township. I've pretty well got the western half of the township. I'm basically up to County 4 and west. I haven't gotten anything number 4 and east, if you will. I don't know what our plan is for doing a road tour. Do we all want to put our thoughts together? I guess that's where I'm at on that one.
This is Dan Hiller. I thought we had talked at that last meeting that we were going to wait for the governor's deal to expire and check with the engineer for his availability and actually take the engineer along with us. I thought we were kind of working on getting and doing something later on this year is where I thought we were at on it.
I believe
That's what I recalled. Not that people can't go out and check out the roads. I'm doing it all the time too. So, thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, I know the worst frost boils were on Brickton Road and past your place, Thomas. That's the worst ones I saw anyway.
And 45th there, yeah, it was virtually impossible.
and then when they were showing up by the usual suspect, by Joe Minks, and then from Verkota's going west, they were just starting to look bad, and the grader came and seemed to squish them down, and they went away. And then the same with that loop going around by west of there and going out by the old Volker farm and Barrett's and so on. And that always was a bad spot, and it seemed like we're catching up on some of that. Not that it's not as good, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
Well, one thing I know we do need to do on 45th and on Brickton there, I know we dumped a bunch of 1-inch rock in it. I think we are going to need to dig out the road. We're going to need to dig out the soft material that is in the road, and I think we are going to have to fill that in with some solid rock so that we don't keep having a recurring occurrence. I know what we did. It's kind of a patch for now, but I think in the future we are going to have to dig them spots out with an excavator and pour in some heavier rock and just kind of firm up the foundation.
Yeah, I know Steve. Steve's got some plans to get some Class 5 back on that this year too, to kind of smooth that out a little bit. That was probably the worst I'd ever seen it.
Yeah, I was taking a skid loader and the land plane out there a couple times a week, just trying to level the road so anybody could get across, because you just about lose a car on the road this year.
Yeah, we certainly have to put some attention to our couple worst ones. As far as I could see, that was the worst roads. Were Brickton and then from Ryman's coming out to County 4. Anything else for road reports? If not, we'll move on. Just very quickly, the airport. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying I had nothing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The Airport Commission, our runway rehabilitation starts tomorrow. The runway will be closed, but the airport will still be open. So if anybody is in need of landing or taking off or whatever, they can use the taxi lane at their discretion. It's kind of like, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. But it is legal by FAA standards to use the taxi lane, but it's rough. The runway is going to be completely torn up and redone. The lighting and so on is all going to be done. It's pretty much all paid for by federal money. Every time you buy an airline ticket, some of that money comes back to all Class B airports. So I guess that's about it. Next year, the taxi lanes are being replaced or repaired, and that bidding is going through right now. I guess that's about all I got for airport. Move on. Research on vehicle prices, Mr. Hiller.
So I did some looking. I went through the state bid on all three Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. I've got numbers. The problem is right now, all the plants are not building vehicles right now. So none of the state bid, they don't stock these trucks. They order them as they need them. Right now, they can't even guarantee the prices that they quoted me because GM, it sounds like they're not allowing any more orders for 2020. So it'd be 2021 pricing. So right now, as far as that, I don't have a lot of pricing there. Chevy was the cheapest. They get a 1-ton Chevy regular cab long box, was just shy of $30,000. That was delivered to our town hall. The place that's got the state contract is Carl Chevrolet down by Des Moines, Iowa. I looked around at some used trucks. Used truck pricing is pretty high, especially when you factor in the pretty good discount that we can get through the state bid we could, if we wanted to, we could do a locate and apply for a fleet discount through GM. It's a $7,000 rebate. I talked to Tom French over at Cambridge Chevrolet. They located one, and that was going to be just shy of $35,000 to get that truck. So it's still quite a bit more than the state bid contract, but cheaper than you or I could walk in and buy. So right now, we can't really do anything until they start building trucks and then get updated information on the pricing, because they don't know if they're going to honor 2020 prices.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to old business. Report on progress of the computer forensics. Thursday night we are meeting with, I believe that's still on as far as I know. And the time again, Doug?
That's 7:30.
7:30, and this will also be a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah, go to meeting, but same thing.
Okay, so 7:30 Thursday night, we will be having a meeting with the forensics attorney.
No, that's not forensics.
No, that's
Thursday
the audit.
night is the AUP.
What's that? Oh,
That's
right.
the auditor.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the forensic. That's the. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. The AUP, the accepted practice meeting is Thursday night at 7:30, and that will still be a Zoom meeting. Sorry. Okay. Now progress on computer forensics.
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill. As was discussed at the last meeting, I reached out to Kearney Forensics I actually spoke with Dan Hiller and a little bit with Thomas Duden as well, as we had discussed, and then I reached out to Kearney Forensics, and I also had a conversation with Ms. Wubin in the interim. And at this point, I actually got an email back from Kearney Forensics, and their estimate to kind of dig deeper into the documents and emails and things like that was $5,000. I would, at this point, Ms. Rubin has offered to meet with me at the town hall to go over some documents that she has talked about are there, and I think Doug has talked about. He's done looking as well, and we would hopefully meet with him as well. We were waiting for the stay-at-home to be lifted. I would like to, at this point, contact Ms. Wubin, get that set up, get that part of it done. I don't recommend at this point that we go ahead with the $5,000. I would prefer to wait until after I speak with Ms. Wubin and meet with her and look at documents at the town hall and make a decision at that point on how we would go forward from there.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Dan Hiller. Can we call Kearney Forensics and ask for our money back? Because the emails that were supposedly missing on the computer, Tom and I met with Doug on Friday, and there's all kinds of emails in that computer. So there's an awful lot of hubbub that got started over nothing.
Yeah, I know Doug had mentioned, again, Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill. Doug had mentioned that, and that was, part of my hope was to meet with Doug and with Connie to go through that stuff as well. And, I can certainly go back to Kearney if there are things on there that, for some reason wasn't found in the mirroring. We can certainly talk to Kearney about that as well.
I believe we have more or less a subcommittee set up, Mr. Duden, Mr. Hiller, and our attorney and Kearney's. I would think that we could probably direct them to come up with a recommendation that after they meet and see where we want to go.
Yeah, and
I don't know,
Mr.
make a lot of decisions tonight because we don't know what we're looking at.
No, and again, Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill. I would welcome Mr. Hiller and Mr. Duden to meet as well. We can all sit down and look at stuff and see where we're at, and then that committee can make a recommendation.
Thank you.
What are we looking for? Yeah, I'm curious. What are we looking for? That was even in your recommendation, was for the board to kind of determine what we're looking for. What is the board looking for? I know there was major concern when Carney looked at the computer and there was only 200 emails in there. Well, no, that's not true. There's a hell of a lot more than 200 emails in there. So what information are you guys looking for? That would really be helpful to know what we're actually looking for. Anybody got an idea of what we're looking for? If we have no idea what we're looking for, this is a done deal.
Dan, I think what the problem was is, we had that original forensics done, and, we were told that there's a lot of information missing. And that's kind of where it started. So, again, it's the same comments that were made at the last meeting. We don't know what we don't know. I still don't know that Jason is going to have to meet and find out, if we're finding more emails, if we're finding more documents, then it maybe is a done deal. But we were going off of information that we had, 2 or 3 months ago or 4 months ago, and we really haven't spoken with Carney until just now. So we're just following through, doing our due diligence. And you're right. I agree. We don't have a list of things that we're looking for yet. And it sounds like Doug is finding more and more information as we're going along here, and we'll just continue down the path. We're not spending any more money on what it sounds like right now on Carney, so we can just stay the course for a little while here until we get more information.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Hill's not going to come up to the town hall for free. I'm just curious. I mean, why did nobody look in the computer? I mean, when Carney sent out the deal that there was only 200 emails, nobody looked at the computer and saw all them subfolders in there?
Jason, maybe you can talk to that. I mean, we didn't know where things were at. Yeah, if we start digging into a computer that could compromise anything that may have been missing. That's how.
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill again. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I will say that the Carney imaging is an image at a certain date and time. And I believe that's the same computer that is there that was imaged. So, if those are there, we may very well be, saying, the stuff is here. Ms. Rubin has indicated that there's stuff that's printed off. If that stuff is there, at this point, that's what we're kind of limited to. I'm not anticipating, spending hours and hours and hours reading every piece of paper in the town hall. That's certainly not my intention. And my intention is to be limited to the issues that are raised in the Carney report. So we'll take a look at that and see if that stuff is there. I can't speak to who had the computer or what's happened since. All I have is the Carney report at this point. So, I think when this is all said and done, I think we owe Connie an apology letter for dragging her through the mud. I don't think any of us, if we were in her shoes, would like to be dragged through the mud like she has. And I think she deserves an apology letter when this is all said and done.
John, I never got an apology from Greg Anderson for the previous 2 years, so.
Well, I agree 100% with John. I mean, and I also think that if, when this is all said and done, I want to see something in the newspaper so our residents know, because there's an awful lot of stuff that's been getting spread around the township. I mean, we're going to have to do something here. This is, I'm really confused as to why nobody opened up the computer. That's really...
When she walked, we didn't know how to get into the computer.
That's true. The recommendation was from... Go ahead, Gene.
We had to get the sheriff to contact her to get the password to even open the computer. And Mr. Dahl still had trouble getting access to anything even when he started. So it wasn't like we were out, and I have never once said specifically her name. I have said, if I've said anything, it's been...
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to call bullshit on that one. I'm done listening to you on this.
You can go back to the minutes.
Let's move on to the next subject. I don't believe you at all, Gene. I am extremely disgusted the way you have handled this whole deal. I am done listening to you on this. Let's get the attorney up there and move forward.
Well, at the annual meeting, we were told by the public,
the information you've been saying, Mr. Stokel. I ask that you resign, Mr. Stokel.
What's that?
I ask that you resign when this is over, Mr. Stokel.
Keep in mind that everything that was done, keep in mind that everything that was done was at the direction of Matt. We didn't do anything without approval from Matt, and that's how it went down.
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Hill again. If I could, I just would ask, again, we're all kind of jumping to the end of this investigation and conclusions that haven't been found. So I would just, again, recommend that we kind of stay on task with what we've been looking at, making sure we carry out our due diligence, and then, allow the committee to make a recommendation and move forward from that recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the progress we will attempt to get is a meeting with previous Clerk-Treasurer, Mr. Duden, and Mr. Hiller with our attorney, and hopefully we have the flash drive from Carney's for a backup. But we were instructed by the electorate at the annual meeting to get to the full investigation. So if that can be done with the subcommittee, so be it. Moving on, the Silver Lake Oaks Environmental Assessment Worksheet. We have two resolutions before us, one granting and one denying a petition for the preparation of an environmental assessment worksheet for Silver Lake Oaks project to be located in Princeton Township. So we are hitting close to the deadline, so we must either deny or grant the petition at this meeting. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, if this is Jason Hill again, if I could just give a brief introduction of this particular issue and kind of what I'm recommending at this point, or at least what I put in front of you, and then if we can get further input from the audience. Again, there's a resolution there, both granting and denying. I want to thank the developer, Mr. John Dahl, and their engineer, Craig Wensman. They provided a detailed response to the concerns that were raised in the petition. Those concerns are itemized in those resolutions, and I have included much of that, specifically in the resolution denying the request for a petition. The information had also been reviewed previously by the town engineer, and he had found everything to be acceptable. So I think I would, like I say, I want to thank Mr. Wenzelman and Mr. Johndal for providing that information to the town board for their review. This review includes, by rule, the evidence presented by the petitioners, which you should have as well, and as well as the evidence provided by the developer and anybody else who submits information. So that's kind of the groundwork we're looking at here, and the information so far that has been presented to the town board is the petitioner and the report prepared by Mr. Wensman. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, the appropriate action is to either move a resolution to deny or move a resolution to grant the petition for the preparation of an environmental assessment worksheet. Is there any discussion? Do I hear a motion one way or the other?
I'd like to make a motion for a resolution denying the EAW petition.
And that is Mr. Whitcomb?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion for it. John Wilhelm.
No, the motion is to deny the petition. Is there a second?
I would second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and seconded to deny the petition. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Hill, Dan Hiller, so this, their petition, I mean, it hasn't met any of the criteria set forth by the state to require an EAW, has it?
No, the information that's provided in the petition is really just the statements raising the concerns. There's a letter from a property owner that kind of reiterates those concerns, and then there's some photographs, but there are no engineering reports or maps or any other kind of detail kind of supporting the concerns that there will be significant environmental impacts. So on that grounds, there isn't a great deal of information there in the petition.
And that's what I was looking for. I was looking for more information from the petitioners, and I didn't really see much of anything there.
Hey, Jason?
Yes.
I actually have the property owner sitting with me.
She did not write a letter. It's the neighbors who wrote a letter.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean. I'm sorry if that was confused. I didn't mean the property owners.
That was confusing.
Okay, I apologize. It was a neighbor. That's correct.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm getting feedback from something else or I'm not hearing conversation.
No, Mr. Chair, this is Jason. I think somebody had their mic on. No, there hasn't been anything further said.
I'm sorry. Okay. I was just hearing like somebody talking in the background, and I wasn't sure if that was addressed to us or not. Is there any further discussion on the motion to deny the petition for preparation of an environmental assessment worksheet? I guess I would speak against it just on the basis of I think people that are going to buy those properties should have full right to know any issues that could be coming up. And with that kind of property density, I think it would be due diligence to grant petition for preparation of an environmental assessment before we approve the final plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Who's speaking?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, who is speaking?
This is Ron Gensler.
Okay.
I was the one that authored the petition, and I believe that the guidelines that were provided to me by both the township and the state, I followed the guidelines accordingly, step by step. So what other additional information? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a wildlife expert and all of that sort of thing. But the guidelines were there, and everything that I addressed was provided. So what more information is there other than the concerns that we citizens that live out here are concerned with those issues, especially the things like the aquifer, because one of our residents out here lost their well, and they say, I don't know this, but they say they lost it because there was construction done and they had to put in a new well. And they lost their water because of that. And that was some concerns, again, with two of the residents adjacent to the property. So I don't know what other information I could have provided, other than I know that some of the things that weren't done originally that were cleaned up evidently and reevaluated. So with all of us out here and the additional almost 100 signatures, of which I think I deserve an apology for Mr. John Dahl, since we're doing this, I think I am doing an apology that I may have, in his opinion, falsely put down signatures when it came to pass, or that we found out that the Christensen that signed that petition was not the same Christensen that works for Mr. John Dahl. I would assume that he should know by this time in life that there are more Christensens than just his cement guy. So with all that, we worked very diligently to protect our property and to protect our residencies and our way of life out here. I don't know what more the board wants. I've done everything that I've been asked by my neighbors to do. And this is where it is. We don't want that many homes out here with that density. It just disrupts our lifestyle.
Excuse me, Mr. John. Wait till Mr.
From what?
Till he's done, please.
I don't understand.
Somebody else was cutting in on you, I believe.
That was Thomas Student here.
Just wait till he's done, please. Wait till Mr. Gensler's done.
I think that's about it. That's all I can offer, is I did everything that I was asked to do. So what else are you looking for? I hope, I really hope that you guys will vote for us to take a look at this more in depth than just somebody, coming in and doing it the way that they're doing it. We're not educated this way, but we want to be sure what's going on here so that we don't end up having problems anymore. So that's it. And if you don't want to give me the apology, that's fine too.
A real property owner.
Mr. Dude.
The one thing I do want to say is the current township board did not make these rules for the land to be developed the way it is. Mr. John Dahl, as much as we don't like it, he's followed the rules to the T. Do we want to see fewer homes out there? Yeah, I've drove by it. Yeah, I could absolutely see having 5-acre parcels or 10-acre parcels. Honestly, that's the way the rules are written. I don't know I mean, you're doing everything you can do on behalf of your residents. I'm sitting on my side of the fence looking, here's the rules that were put in place by the former administration. Who are we to say, well, we feel like this, but our rules say this? That's what the former board did. I mean, if we want to go back to the way of doing things based on feelings for everything, I mean, we're trying to correct the issues of the past. Yeah, I agree. We need to probably look at the planning commission and have them relook at the zoning and, you know, adapting some policies to prevent this in the future.
All right, then why don't we just figure out have a moratorium on it like was brought up at the last special meeting? Seems like that ball got dropped somehow because either somebody doesn't know what a moratorium is or what was the reason. It's only...
Hey, Ron.
A moratorium is just a Band-Aid just to not make a decision.
Hey, Ron, I got a question for you. Do you actually own that property that you live on, or do you rent that?
Who am I speaking to?
This is your neighbor.
Which neighbor?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's your neighbor. And what I'm asking is, do you actually own that property, or do you rent that property?
I bought this place cash, Buster. Cash money.
No, you didn't,
Cash.
because it's not in your name.
Yes, I did.
And you have neighbors that are actually mad at you for doing what you're doing.
I bought this place cash money.
Call this back to order.
So it's none of your business what I paid for it.
Well, just remember, I'm your neighbor,
You have
it
to-
can be really bad for you.
The board meeting,
I
we
what?
have to mute everybody but the board, we will. We're not gonna get into personalities.
Good.
Excuse me, Mr. Anybody else have?
Mr. Chair?
Motion has been made and seconded to deny.
I think we have a right to look on the environmental impact. I think it's important to know what this development is going to do to the environment in that area. You know, I'd sure hate to see our waterways get polluted and surrounding wildlife be depleted by having such density. And with this work study, some areas might come to light. And I think it's important that we do our due diligence and pass this through.
Mr. John. This is Bill Whitcomb. So who have you called and talked to about this? Have you talked to anybody from the county?
I have not. I have not had the time to do it.
So you haven't done your due diligence yet, right? If you talk to the county,
I haven't done my part.
You talk to the engineer, you talk to the attorney, you talk to all the professionals that we have.
Put 100 holes on top of a river or a lake without investigating it.
Let's
You just don't.
identify
That's just-
who is speaking to who.
Yes. Who is speaking, please?
Who's speaking to who?
This is Bill Whitcomb, and I was asking questions of Mr. Wellhelm.
Mr. Chairman, I call point of order and move the motion to go back to the initial vote.
The motion has been made, seconded, to deny a petition for preparation of an environmental assessment worksheet. Question has been called. We will now proceed to vote. Motion is to deny the worksheet. Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Hiller.
Aye.
Mr. Stolko is no. Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
No.
Motion carries 3-2. We will deny the petition for preparation of a environmental assessment. Next item of business is select a proposal for township website and approve expenditures.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Doug. This project got kicked around a little bit with the whole COVID thing, but I want to get it back on track. I have received 5 proposals from various designers, and I've looked at the various ones that we discussed it with Mr. Whitcomb as well, just looking at some of the options. There's one by Surreal Marketing that's clearly way out of our price ranges, clearly for a different sort of organization. The same thing, I believe, applies to Proud City. That's for bigger cities. So basically what it came down to was the Gary Larson proposal and the Gov Office proposal. As I could see,
Repeat the second one.
Gov Office. Gov Office has done Baldwin and Livonia townships, and those are nice web pages. They're we like the way they're laid out. Mr. Larson has done several in Sandy County. Stanford is one. The difference is Gov Office would come in at about $1,200 per year, whereas Mr. Larson would initially charge a $500 setup. Then there would be a $100 domain registration. A $20 domain registration and a $100 hosting fee. And then there would be no annual charge. What I wanted to propose is that we accept Mr. Larson's proposal. He's local, would work with us directly. And that would enable us to establish a website and enable us to put our information on our own website. And then if we decided later on that we want something a little more robust, we could look at some of the other options. But we may also just conclude that it's serving our needs very well and we could just stay with it. But it has the versatility for us to put our own documents up there, and it would be a fairly efficient, fairly quick setup. We might be able to get it going even within the next month or so. So that's what I was proposing. Is we accept his bid. I remember did I send those out? I don't think I sent them out this time, did I?
Mr. Chairman, Doug, had we proposed this to possibly Andrea, the one who's doing the videographer stuff? Because I think she does the website. I think she does websites too.
No, I didn't speak with her about it. No.
I would like to offer it to her also and just see. I mean, she's done everything with the videographer and hasn't charged us a dime. I would like to see us at least offer it to her too and see where she comes back on it.
Okay, my concern is to continue delaying it. If that's the consensus of the board that you want to look at some more vendors, there's an unlimited number of them out there. But we could just delay it forever too. And that's been my concern, is we just keep kicking it down the road.
Hey, floor is open. What's your choice? Who wishes?
This is Bill Whitcomb. I do appreciate what Thomas had said there. It's just we've been delayed on this for, just with everything that's come up with COVID and the audit and everything like that. I really don't want to put this out another month. I think in the past we've already given approval to get a website started. I don't recall the dollar amount or if we even approved a dollar amount, but as Doug said, he and I had looked at several websites, and I'd kind of like to just move forward here with Gary Larson if we could.
Make that a motion?
Yeah, I'd make that a motion to move forward with the website.
Motion has been made to Gary Larson create the website at $500 initial, $20 licensing, and $100 home fee. Is there a second to that motion?
Dan Hiller, I'll second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to go with Gary Larson as the website developer. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Duden?
Nay.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Nay.
Nay, okay. Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Stokols, aye. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. We will go with Gary Larson as the website developer. $100 initial, $100 host, and $20 licensing, I believe you said.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's one more matter.
Yes.
I would like to see it so. I would like to propose a domain name for the website of Princeton Township MN.US. And if anyone's interested, you can make that a motion.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Dan Hiller, I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made to use the domain name as Princeton Township. Say it again.
Princeton Township MN.US.
Okay. I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Duden?
Aye.
Mr. Hiller?
Aye.
Stokols, aye. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilhelm?
Aye.
Okay, we're done with the old business. We'll move on to status updates. 2019 audit is completed. We have a meeting Thursday night for approving the practices. It will be a Zoom meeting at 7:30. That's all we need to talk about there. The audit was sent in on before the deadline, so we made it. Next item is Princeton Township sign replacement policy. Who takes this?
I've got that one. Yeah, I'm actually working on that, writing up some of the short statements on why some of the signs are being removed. So I'm just currently in process on that one right now. Hope to have it done by next month.
Okay, we will move that to next month. Maintenance vehicle pickup with snowplow. That was kind of discussed earlier. We'll move on to heavy equipment, plow trucks and grader discussions. So let's take this.
I can start with it. Given our big tandem truck about 2 or 3 months, whenever COVID first started, I did walk around the big tandem truck. It runs. It needs a lot of work. I know we just dumped a clutch or tranny. I don't remember what we put into it. to be honest with you, it's too big for the most part for our roads to do what we want. It's going to need a lot of work to get it brought back up to par. It looks like there's potentially a head gasket going on it, for sure a water pump, it looks like, some exhaust leaks. I don't know about the light. It sat for a year, 6 months of it with salt on it before we got it washed out. I'm guessing half the lights don't work. That's just, I don't know that for a fact. The truck is in rough shape. The other thing going against it, it's a 9-speed manual transmission. 90% of these trucks on the road anymore are going to be automatics that are doing plowing work, trying to shift and run that big blade plus a wing blade on top of it. It gets tricky. You're definitely not texting and driving at that point. The little plow truck, it's up to par. It meets the DOT specs. Crawling underneath it a couple weeks ago, you can start to see where some stuff is going to start going wrong with it. The exhaust right now, it does pass, but you can tell that it's getting real thin. It's starting to flake off. The steel on the exhaust on that one's starting to flake off. Problem is, we're going to be damned if we're doing, damned if we don't on that thing. We just stuck a brand new engine in it. I don't know why, who authorized it. Sitting on the board, I don't remember authorizing the repairs to the truck to be made to put a brand new engine in that truck when we only spent $5,000 on it. We're going to be lucky to get that out of it, to be honest with you. When Bill and I took it out of the shed the other day, we got an electrical connection that must have some corrosion on it. We couldn't get the blade to lift up. I know I initially talked to Bill on the phone with him. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what you got to do. They wouldn't do it. PTO engages, so the hydraulic pump's engaging, but we're losing an electrical connection between the joystick and the truck and the blade itself. And that could just be, a little bit of salt, just a loose wire, frayed wire. I mean, we're dealing with 20-year-old wiring on it too. I mean, it is a 2000 or a 99 truck. The equipment's not getting any newer. Honestly, I think we did a better job this past year with our plowing in a more timely fashion than we historically have in the past. For sure, I'd like to move that big truck down the road. The little one, at the same time, it'd be nice to have around just in case. But we've also got that tractor sitting there. Brian's done us very well, I think. We need something. He'll run out and do it. A couple other guys around town. I mean, I know I'm sitting on the board. I mean, I've got 2 skids with blades. We need to open something up. Todd Samala, he's got skids with blades and pickups with blades, and whoever else around town. I'm sure, if we needed to sub out some of that stuff on the side too. I find it hard keeping both trucks in inventory, to be honest with you. I can see the need to keep the one, but at the same time, we've got Steve in the summer part-time, but who do we have in the winter part-time on call to run the equipment? That's just my 2 cents.
Tom, this is Dan Hitler. Nope. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, I think we're better off just getting rid of both of them big trucks. The likelihood of using the single axle, that's just an expensive truck to sit outside. And when them big trucks sit, Tom, you know as well as I do, when they sit, every time you start them, something breaks. And I think if we're not going to utilize the truck, and then not to mention our residents driving by and seeing 2 eyesores sitting outside of the building, I say just the 2 trucks be done with it and call it what it is. If we could definitely try to find the receipts, the invoices, for the repair that was done on them, that'll help them sell. I don't know if we'd want to talk to either Tom, if you wanted to try a Facebook Market deal or talk to North Star Truck Sales out of St. Cloud. I know they sell the stuff for Livonia Township, and they've done pretty good for them. So, you know, that's my opinion.
Yeah, we can see what we can get out of them. Just kind of, I mean, we can take that first approach. You know, if we can kind of, I'll do some research on what both these trucks are bringing, and bring it to the next meeting. Maybe we can present it. Say, let's try and get this out of it. You know, before we pull the trigger on anything. Right now, they're not costing us anything per se. You know, versus just dumping them on an auction. Let's see what we can get out of them.
Hey, I kind of take offense to that. Dumping them on an auction. Ouch. No, I agree 100%. I mean, you know, if you want to do some research to see, you know, what, you know, top, you know, market dollar would be on them or whatever, and try moving them that way. And if they're still there to come this fall, then at that point, then a person can just say, okay, well, enough's enough, get them gone. But I don't see the point in having either one of them trucks around and putting any more money into either one of them if we're not going to utilize them.
I guess I would be all in favor of looking for private treaty to get rid of them privately, and if somebody come forward with an offer, we could discuss it at the next monthly meeting. Probably look toward getting rid of both of them, with the idea that one has a good transmission, one has a good engine, and we don't know if there's anything else wrong with them. That would be my suggestion, that we if somebody can find somebody that needs the truck and would make an offer, we can turn them down at the next meeting, but